functionality off. Here we go. Hi, everybody. It looks like we're ready almost. We're going to wait till the half hour to give folks a little bit more time to get here. But we've got Jay, we've got Hannah. What else do we need?
What more do you need?
Yeah. Hey, Pepper. I'm not going to complain about having Pepper here too. And Pop. We're just rolling. I mean, you know, we were going live in a couple minutes, and Richie's like, "Hey, I need to go for a second." Jay and I were like, "Man, there is no show without Richie's technical support behind the scenes." So thanks, Richie.
True. At least you didn't dip out. That would have been unfortunate for both of us.
It would have been, yeah. How many can somebody tell us how many people are in the chat? It is not clear. 11. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, great. Okay, let me do an at everyone on the. I'm gonna be known as that guy that does the at everybody, and they just hate me
because you haven't earned that, Hannah. I am very secretive.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. We're just gonna go ahead and hop to it. Yeah. Discord's threatening me with an inch of my life. All right, I blame everybody else for that. But hey, okay. So I'm here with Jay Krauss. Thanks for joining me, Jay. I really appreciate you. I think you were one of the first people that raised their hand and was like, "Yeah, I'll go live." With Reck,
sure.
Very brave. We're today. So I have been on this journey to read a lot of book ones in preparation for the Lit RPG Con next week, and Steel Foundations was on my list, and I read it and loved it. And I asked Jay if he would be so gracious as to talk with me about it. So here we are. I will say that this particular live is really going to be focused on book one. I know there's 5 out, 6, 5, 6.
We're working on 6 coming out in October.
Okay, so we got 5 out, 6 is coming, but I personally have only read book 1, so please no spoilers in the chat. So yeah. So tonight we're talking about Steel Foundations as part of the Will of Immortals series. I personally listened to the book last week. It's narrated by Armin Taylor. It's an isekai cultivation lit RPG that answers the question, what if a knight was isekai'd from the 16th century Germany into a world full of magic and monsters? Leon Jaeger is a stoic knight who wears armor to hide old battle scars, allows his steel mask to do all the talking, and to his amazement, he's befriended along the way by various characters, including the notable Hannah. So let's just kind of dive in. We'll start asking questions and talking about the series and the book.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So Jay, it's gotten around the Discord that you're known as being the Short King. I'm assuming you prefer Jay over Your Majesty, but I want everyone to know, how would you prefer us to call you during the con and during the podcast?
I mean, follow your heart. Jay is fine. If you want to bow, that's also acceptable.
Okay, so that's the official word. If you're at con, it's okay to bow to Jay. We can all embarrass him together. So
absolutely.
I did a quick I did a quick search, and Steel Foundation's publication date on Amazon, it appears to be September 2024. Is that accurate?
That is, and I wrote it about 21 days before that I started. So that is when we started the journey here, indeed.
Wow. All right. Okay. And now you've got 5 books out since, well, 4 books since that, right? And the 6th on pre-order. So talk to me about how quickly you write, your release strategy here. Did you have 4 books ready to go, or it sounds like you just wrote the book, published it, wrote another book, published it, just kept writing and publishing books? So that
pretty much. I started writing and then publishing, and now I'm about a book ahead on both of my series. I have a second series starting next month. I'm doing 5 days a week. We're doing about 20 to 25,000 words a week, give or take, and 8 books a year. So we have 4 in 2 series every 45 days.
Okay, so I've got to ask because, like I said, I listened to your book on Audible, and so is your narrator able to keep up with you? That's a pretty quick pace for a writer and a narrator.
I've been shocked. Podium has really gone above and beyond with that. By the end of the year, they'll have 5 of my books on Audible. So we'll be
Wow.
booked through book 5, potentially
Okay.
6, because I did pick up my new series as well with a
That's
different
awesome.
narrator. But yes,
Yeah. Not gonna have them do double duty. Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, I think that puts you at a pace that's one of the maybe the top in the genre as far as just amount of words per month or per week or whatever. Um, do you have any secret, like a superpower there? Or what's your favorite snack when you're writing?
autism. That's the secret superpower.
Yeah,
That and restrained ADHD. Once you can get in the groove, get in the flow state, it all just sort of comes out. But
just goes. Yeah,
I'm pretty rigid with my schedule. I get up in the morning, I start writing before work because I do work full time as well.
yeah.
And so I get my work done, get my writing done, get my work done, and then finish up in the evening.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, great job. You're using the superpower for good. I loved the book. So let's get a little bit more into the book itself. And then everybody, we're going to have a contest. So let me forewarn you about our contest. So we've got a prize for the best question that's asked. Hey, Geneva, nice to have you join us. And Tiffany, we've got a ton of people tonight. So thanks for joining. So we're going to have a prize for the best question of the night. That question is going to be picked by Hannah. No bribing Hannah, though. She might bite.
She is bribable.
So, best question of the night. I'm going to have a section for questions. So think about your question right now. And when I'm like, okay, questions from the audience, that's when, raise your hand, come with your questions. So I've got a few of my own though. So personally, I spent a bit of my youth in love with those old knight tales. I think I read like Lamort d'Arthur a couple times with Fire and Sword, well, some of the classics. I really love how your main character, Leon, has got that tough, stoic, dig in and protect the weak mentality. He truly embodies the sense of like morality and romanticized heroic knight persona that we've read about, right? What are your influences, Jay? What led you to this story?
Well, I'll say it's really twofold there. My primary influence for Leon is my late father. He was my biggest supporter in my writing, and my first book ever published was a small science fiction novel that did not go anywhere. But I got that published shortly before he passed because I wanted a book that I could hand to him because he was always, very supportive, and he wanted to be able to read a book that I wrote. His middle name is Leon, and so his whole persona is very much what I base Leon on. Of course, as a writer, some of you ends up in all of your characters, so sort of a mix between my father and I. And on the other side of that, I started the series with Leon because I wanted that main character. I got kind of tired of the murder hobo or the sort of milk toast sort of character you see a lot in the light novels. I read a lot of light novels and a lot of cultivation novels, and you really get one of the two MCs, right? And I wanted something different and someone with a code that doesn't necessarily shirk from, getting the job done and killing when it's necessary, but does it for somewhat of the right reasons.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that comes across. I mean, he is an utter badass, but he's generally, focused on doing it for the right reasons, right?
That's
Yeah,
the hope.
yeah. Well, I've also heard a rumor that you're a blacksmith, and I noticed that Leon also, like fixes his own armor and stuff, which is probably what knights, would need to do a bit of back in the day. But tell us about blacksmith. What elements have you brought to the story, maybe even beyond this book one?
Well, I am a blacksmith. I've been doing that for longer. Well, not quite longer that I've been writing. I've been writing for most of my life, but writing seriously for sure. For sure. We've done a lot of local shows. We did a couple of expo shows at Dulles and stuff like that. So we had a fairly large production going on there for a little bit. I try to put that into the books because it's interesting. Every one of the books has at least one scene of realistic traditional blacksmithing
Hmm.
that I attempt to write in a way that is repeatable if you were a blacksmith and wanted to try the project that
Okay.
Leon is creating.
Yeah.
So, you try to interject some of that because it's interesting, and I like crafting, but I try not to do too much of it because you're going to get complaints one way or the other, right? It's not a crafting novel, but little bits there, here and there, giving the character and the reader sort of some downtime between killing monsters and facing gods.
Yeah. Well, so your image today is very on brand because Leon, as the main character, really doesn't reveal his face at all. He hides it behind his mask for most of the book. Um, did you make that armor yourself? Is that something that you crafted?
No, armor smithing is not in my wheelhouse. I'm more
Yeah.
artistic blacksmith. I am a member of Abana and a gilded member of Central Virginia Blacksmiths Guild, but armor smithing is very different to what I do.
Yeah, that's fair. I had to ask. So, all right. So in the world, we quickly realized that the mechanics of Leon's new world work a bit differently for him than everybody else. He progresses faster than the average Joe. He's also gets challenged a lot more. Like a beginner dungeon really isn't a beginner dungeon to him, but he also is very overpowered for a beginner dungeon. This makes him stronger, but it progresses him a lot faster. A lot of books take more time at like lower levels. You're killing, rats in the basement for at least the first quarter of the first book, right? But you're almost sprinting through these first tiers of progression, which is honestly a nice change. What's your perspective on this? Was that intentional?
It is. You said no spoilers, so I won't. But
Hmm.
I will say that by the end of the first arc, around book 4 or so, starting in book 3, you start to see um, sort of the breadcrumbs there as to why uh, he progresses so quickly.
Hmm.
And as we move forward, he will not have that same benefit. There's a couple of different components to it that are in the first book. One, he he saved all of Earth, which at the time was several 100,000 people. That is
Yep.
historically accurate, by the way. Whatever number I put in the book, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't read my books. But he saved all of Earth, which gave him a whole bunch of credit, I guess, for as far as the system is concerned. There's another layer on top of that as well that we won't go into because that's spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Um, but then he also starts older than the average person, right? He comes to the world at 23, 24, 25, somewhere in that range. I don't think I ever specify exactly how old he is, but mid 20s, where most people grow up, well, all people that we're aware of grow up in the system, right? They understand how it works, they understand cultivation. He doesn't get any of that. So I see it as the system helping him sort of get caught up to his peers more than him being accelerated by anything else.
Got
So
it.
there's a couple of layers there.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess I'll have to dig into that in book 2. So, but I think what's interesting, and I wanted to ask this is if, in the first chapter, he's still on Earth, right? And I was going to ask if that was an Earth or is that like a multiverse version of Earth? Because if it is Earth and he saved us from Earth becoming a cultivation environment, you might have a lot of angry lit RPG readers that Leon diverted Earth from a cultivation framework.
Very true. I would consider it a multiverse Earth.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's the
Yeah.
Earth of now because that opens up a whole other can of worms, and I'm already getting enough flack. So I think we'll call it a multiverse Earth and go with that.
Okay, so hear that. It's official canon. Leon did not prevent us from being a cultivation framework here on Earth. It's a multiverse, other dimensional Earth, right? So, okay, so we're kind of going along. We're gonna get to some of your questions. I see Tiffany is just going wild with the questions, which I love. She's wanting that coin. So let me ask just one more of my own, and then we'll kick it over to some of the fan questions. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about a clear fan favorite, the indomitable Hannah. Leon's terrible at talking to women and people in general. In fact, I think I teased Jay that maybe Leon's longest thing that he says in the book is like 2 sentences long, right? Um, but he does get adopted by a fellow cultivationist, Hannah, who's kind of like a badass, like lesbian sister of sorts, which she teaches him about the world and kind of softens his worldview, and helps him talk to women. So give us a little bit about the inspiration for Hannah, because this dynamic really works in the novel.
Absolutely. I'll start by saying that Leon's inability to take a hint and speak to women is probably what my wife would consider the clearest indication of a self-insert. So we take from that what you will.
Yeah.
As to Hannah, actually Hannah is in the chat. The inspiration, the muse for that character, it's pretty much a 1-to-1. She is the lesbian little sister chaos gremlin that we all need and we all want, and a very close friend of mine, and I'm sure she will say much about that in the chat. But we've known each other for several years now, and I needed something or someone, I should say, to sort of play against that stoic knight, right? You have this character who is very clearly hurting. He has PTSD. He's got a whole lot going on, a lot of trauma, and is thrown into a world where he knows nothing and no one. And for most people, that would totally shut them down. And in a lot of ways, you can see that is what happens to him until he meets Hannah. And she immediately, because that's the kind of person that she is here in the book and in real life, she just makes him her friend. Like, you don't have any choice in the matter. This is what's happening. Kind of what happened to me. And so with her help in both combat and out of it, he becomes the person that he needs to be, right? She keeps him alive when he does stupid things, and then teaches him what he needs to know and gives him that family and that grounding that allows him to come into his own. And in a lot of ways, that is Hannah's whole personality. So, if you ever get to meet her, that is what she is. I think in one of the books I call it the baby bird caught in a windstorm of love. Like, that's how you feel.
Love it. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's great in the book, the character Hannah is amazing. She really does kind of make Leon just kind of come to life. It's like, he's very, he wasn't like a murder hobo, but he was very like combat oriented. I'm just going about my day. And when she kind of comes into his life, he kind of comes alive in the book, and that's awesome. So.
Right. And he very much becomes less about, you've attacked me, so you die, and more, you can say what you wish to me, but if you say something about my sister, it's not going to go well for you. And that definitely expands as his found family expands at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I've got a few more questions of mine, but we're going to kick it to the audience. Tiffany has been going wild here, so we're going to ask a couple of Tiffany's, but start putting in your questions. So the first one is, how much of Leon is like you? I mean, you said your dad was your inspiration, but how much would you say you're like Leon?
I mean, I would like to say that me and my father were very similar people. He is a far better man than I, but I did my best. We're both fairly stoic. I mean, when you meet me in person, I'm very different from the way I am online. Online it's much easier for me to communicate more freely. In person, I'm not that very much. So very much that we both have similar backgrounds. We've both been through a lot of stuff, and we've relied heavily on the family that we've made to pull us out of that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's cool that you got to do a character that, is of the person that you look up to and kind of, strive for too. So it works, right? I'm going to skip one of these questions because we're going to get to that in a little bit. My next question is, can the group see some of your blacksmithing work? And maybe that's a link to some stuff, like a picture you've posted online or something. I'm kind of curious too. When you say artistic blacksmithing, I kind of have an idea, but yeah.
I have a whole Instagram full of it. I failed to post. That's kind of rude. Doesn't like me.
Dun dun dun.
It's at Resolute Forge. If you can find it, I'll just put the thing. maybe someone else can post a link because apparently I can't.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So go check that out on Instagram. I am definitely going to do that after the podcast. Tiffany wants to know if you'd be willing to narrate a romance novel, because I think you've got some fans of your voice.
Well, I'm pretty sure my wife will riot if I narrate a romance novel before I write one. She's
Yes.
been rather vocal about me writing, let's call it romance, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe that first, and then we'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah. I get the impression from the LitCon Discord that we've got a few significant others that are big fans of romance. So we'll have to dig some up for everybody.
It does seem that way.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Broken Joker's got a question for us. When writing the arena testing for Pigface, I mean Furkle, did you have a specific person in mind when you presented him to Leanne as an arena sacrifice?
You know, I don't know that I had anyone in particular in mind, and I think my lawyer would appreciate me saying that.
Yeah.
It was kind of a brutal scene.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So the official answer is no, and no more comments about that particular question.
Exactly.
So we've got another question from Broken Joker. Who is your favorite obstacle for Leon to face in Steel Foundations?
This is going to sound trite, but himself. You know, there's so much in this life, in all of our lives, that we face on the outside, but our biggest obstacle will always be what's on the inside. You know, what we go through affects us in ways that we don't even recognize, and the way that we process that and the way we get through it is what makes us who we are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's very in line with, you know, the Stoic Knight sort of ethos as well. Of, you know, like we are our own enemies and have
That's
to
very
master
true.
ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, Pop's got our next question. Would Sydney murder you if you inserted her into your fiction?
Well, I would like to say that a lot of Lin Ma's character is Sydney. So I don't think so. I think she'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the assumption there is, Pop. I mean, if Jay poorly inserted her into the fiction, or
I
yeah,
wouldn't do that. That would be
no,
not a good idea.
yeah. So Broken Joker has another question. So Scotch, ham, cheesecake, and Dragon Daddies.
Yes, maybe yes. Yikes.
There you go. Yes, maybe yes. Yikes is the answer. Broken Joker, I don't know if you have a Dragon Daddy around, but you'll have to give us some more context for that one. So,
Oh, they want me and Sour Patch Hero to co-write a dragon smut novel, I believe is the way it was pitched to me.
Gotcha. Okay. So what you're saying is you guys need all you two and Ren need to have the, what is it? Bourbon. What was it? It was like bourbon writing, live writing.
Yeah, books and bourbon.
Books and bourbon. Yes. Yeah.
And write a dragon smut. I can see that going off the rails
I can
immediately.
see. I mean, it would immediately be legendary, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Go off the rails and stay off the rails. But that's generally how things go.
I mean, generally, yes. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Come on, folks, bring in the questions. There's a prize. We've got the coin. Do you have a picture of the coin? I don't know if we can share a picture of the coin. I think it was on the Discord.
It was on the Discord.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have a way to share it here. Unfortunately, it is YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like there were more questions. I need to scroll up here.
Too. Yeah. Am I missing any? Tiffany did have the question about the last light novel that you read.
I think that was probably In Another World with My Smartphone, or Ari Fueta, perhaps.
Okay.
Or Velvet Night in Another World. That was a good one.
Yeah. We got Miranda. What was your inspiration for the way the characters level up in the book?
It's very much sort of my own take on the Eastern cultivation fantasy. I can't claim that I came up with it. It's
Yeah.
a sort of Taoist in nature and semi-historical, I guess I'll say. But there's so many authors in China, especially, who are writing serial novels that I've read a lot of that
Hmm.
use the same basic premise. You have your core, you build up levels, and you get stronger.
Hmm.
Some of them are horrifically translated, but that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where that came from for sure.
Yeah. So with Leon, I'm not giving a ton away here, but his core seems to be very like fire focused, at least in the beginning. I don't know where that goes necessarily, but was there any initial inspiration for that in particular?
Well, I figured blacksmith. The the affinities, of course, are based on who you are as a person initially. That's how you get them. And the closer the affinity is to the base element, so fire, water, earth, air, the more powerful. So his being fire makes his affinity for fire more powerful than someone who has affinity for heat, for example, or flame. Um, he also has a couple other affinities. One that he took from Hannah and or gave to Hannah. It happens.
Yeah.
Of light, which is another one of the base elements. And he has a soul affinity, which I think I explained in the first book is rather
Hmm.
special. And that one you really won't see the effect of until later in the series. But that one is actually far more powerful than anything else he has.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah. He's got the scars to prove it, right?
That he does.
Yeah. Amanda wants to know if you're going to play any games at the con.
I do have 2 slots for games. I have a 2 p.m. on Saturday. It just says D&D/RPG. No idea where that's going to go.
Yeah.
And I have and a Friday at 2 p.m. as well. I don't know why I skipped that one. For board game and casual,
Yeah.
card casual. Maybe we'll play some Magic. I don't know. They haven't told me exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to show up and do what I'm told.
Yeah, basically, I'm also hosting a couple game slots as well, and it's just this type general genre of game. I think we might be deciding with the table at the time of gaming, depending on what games are there. So definitely, I am driving to con. So if there's any games that I have that anybody wants me to bring, I'll bring them so we can play them. But yeah, start if there's something that you really want to play at con, make sure you bring it, which might be difficult if you're flying. So
I will be flying, and I'll be flying with armor because I got
yeah,
talked into that. So
which is going
really
to be
excited.
epic. Yeah, yeah. If somebody was going to cosplay as a character from your book, what would you want them to? Yeah, what would
Well,
what would be surprising or?
surprising. I based the character that you'll meet in book 3, Soren the monk, on my brother, who is also ridiculously jacked for no reason, and I want him to shave his head and do that cosplay so bad. Um,
All right.
I'm hoping that I can make that happen at some point.
Yeah.
I had the armor that I wear. I sent pictures of to my artist for the cover art, and so it's based on armor that I wear because I figured it would be easier for me to cosplay Leon if it was based on armor I already own. Obviously, I
Mhm.
spent a lot of money on
Yeah,
my
makes
art.
sense. Yeah.
And my wife has a Lin Ma cosplay as well that we had special ordered. So there's been some cosplaying for sure.
Yeah. Is your wife going to be at the con too? Or are you guys going to go cosplay as a couple, as Leon and
She
Linma?
she is going to be at the con. She's making a face at me. I'm not sure what that means. Yes or no.
That's epic. So I think what I'm hearing is that we need somebody to shave their head so they can play the monk, Soren.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So that's I think that's a guaranteed coin at con if you shave your head to play the monk. Yeah.
Here
There
we
we
go.
go. There's an example of a coin. Yep. So that's going to be tonight's prize for best question and also the prize at the con. I'm making this canon for you, Jay. If somebody shaves their head to play Soren, we'll make that happen.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. So I've got a question from John. Are you a gamer and have any of your favorite games influenced your writing?
I am quite a gamer. I actually met my wife on a video game. So gaming has always been a
Yeah.
big thing for me. I don't know that any particular game has influenced my writing in any more than every experience has. It's mostly the interpersonal part of gaming that I enjoy. So I play a lot of online games, and the more people you talk to, the more experience you have with talking to people, the better your dialogue becomes. I think, I hope. So
Yeah.
it's probably more in the interpersonal side of things than anything else.
Yeah, that's fair. What game was it that you and your wife played when you guys met?
EVE Online, believe it or not,
There you
the
go.
least sexy MMO ever made.
Hey, it worked. Can't complain. That's awesome. Well, thanks, John, for the question. We got Doug here. What is the furthest you've written in a book before realizing that you hated where it was going? That's,
Man,
I
that's
think
a
every author has had that moment.
probably. I don't know that I've had a moment where I've hated where it was going. I do have regrets on the way that my first novel ended because I felt that I was rushed in the ending. And for legitimate reasons, I think. I wanted to get it to my father before he passed, but I do wish I'd spent more time on that. I've started dozens of what I called novels back in the day. You know how it is, when you're
Yeah.
you're just sort of poking around at it. But
Got like
my
whole
first
notebooks behind me full of
oh
those.
yeah,
Yeah.
my first real foray into writing, I consider Steel Foundations. I wrote Privateer Prologue as the prologue to a series that I still intend to write, but I haven't been able to. Ever since
Yeah.
my father passed, I haven't been able to get into the mindset of writing that book. Writing is such a personal thing, and when you have something that is reminding you of something negative, it can be very difficult to get into the flow, for me at least.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got to get over that emotion. I think people underestimate sometimes how much that impacts you, you know. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I lost
Uh,
track of the question, but I hope I answered it.
yeah, no, it was how far have you written in a book before you realizing that you hated where it was going?
I don't know that I've ever hated where it was going. I've dropped books for just losing interest, of
Mhm.
course, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I can answer this one for you, but so John's asking, how does your voice not sound so all echoey through that helmet? And I think it's magic, but you tell me, Jay.
well, if I had my helmet on, I don't think you'd be able to understand a word that I said. I can go grab it. Give me a second.
Okay, here we go. We'll test this out for you, John. Gonna destroy my belief in magic.
All right, how's that?
It's actually not too bad. It is a little bit muted, but it's not too bad.
Well, I'm talking through steel, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
could be worse, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not bad.
I have a good
Okay.
mic, so it probably helps.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So,
All right, we'll take
all
that.
right. Tiffany tonight wants to know how important it is for you to include diverse and LGBTQ characters in your writing.
Honestly, incredibly important, and the more negative comments, the more negative reviews that I get, the more hate messages, the more important it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
To me, especially, I have many close friends and relatives that are in the community, and I find it important as someone who is on the outside looking in, of course, to show that LGBTQ plus representation does not and perhaps should not be a sexual thing, right? There's no sex in my books. There's no, not even, implied. It's just showing people being people, regardless of their walks of life. And of course, fantasy, the whole existence of fantasy is to allow you to live lives that you would not otherwise have access to, right? We don't have magic. We don't get to fight monsters, maybe for the better, but you read books to escape into worlds that you don't have access to in your real life. And I think it's important to show that, no matter where you're coming from, who you are, who you love, your orientation or anything, you can find a place in my world, because everyone is welcome and everyone should be. And I think that is the way that representation should go. I think
Yeah.
you certainly don't want it to feel forced. And I always laugh when I get those. You're forcing representation, because Hannah is based on a real person, and her orientation ultimately does not matter to the story, but that's who she is. And
Yeah.
it would be disingenuous of me to even consider changing that, obviously, right? And so I guess that's why it's so important, is that their stories should be told alongside of everybody else's, and
Yeah.
everyone should have someone to point at and say, "That's me."
Yeah, absolutely. Hannah, by far, is one of my favorite parts of Steel Foundations, and her identity is part of who she is in the book. And it's cool to see this like stoic 16th century knight who gets booped into this world just like not care, I mean, there's even this joke, and one of my questions I was going to ask you, because there's this joke where she insists that she's got a girlfriend in like the next village over, and Leon, his internal monologue is like, yeah,
Right.
sure,
The
right.
girlfriend in Austria. Yeah. The
Yeah,
girlfriend in
yes, the
Canada.
girlfriend in
Yeah.
Austria joke. Yep. And I cackled. It was like, so one of my questions was going to be, does Hannah in the novel have a girlfriend, or is this a Clive's wife situation?
Oh, she does. I don't
Yeah.
think you meet her until book 5, though. I still had to kind
Okay,
of,
so I gotta
get
keep
to
reading.
know the real life girlfriend to figure that out. But
Yeah.
apparently, I nailed it, so that's good.
That's good, right? I'm sure, because Hannah would probably kill you if
Oh
you
yeah,
didn't.
for sure. And
Yeah,
I do feel that a lot of Leon and Hannah's interactions are very true to life. I'm much more of a quiet and reserved person comparative to my little sister there, little chaos gremlin.
yeah, yeah, yes. No, that's fair. Well, let's hop in. We've got some more questions here. What this is, Michael? This is dark. Like, hey, what is the deepest pain you're willing to subject your characters to? And then he asked if that was too dark a question. It's like, that's pretty dark. Yeah,
No, that's a fair question. I mean, I try to keep the subjects that I deal with in my novels. I try to keep them to things that either I have experienced or someone close to me has experienced, so that I have some level of understanding of not only what it might feel like, but how someone could potentially get out of it, right? I've been through a lot. I'm coming up on 40 now, and I've seen a lot of this world, and so we're dealing with themes like complex PTSD. We're dealing with things like trauma, body dysmorphia, um,
yep,
these things that people deal with every day, right? And I try to take those things and show my characters overcoming them in ways that are realistic. And not every approach is going to work for every person, certainly not. But if even one person reads my books and goes, maybe that'll help me, then that's more than worth it to
yeah,
me as a writer, right?
yeah,
So in terms of how how far am I willing to go, there's certain things that I'm not going to show. There's certain things that are truly traumatic for people, and I don't think there's any real way to show certain acts without it being porn. Like, there's
yeah,
certain people that would enjoy that, and those people I don't necessarily want reading my books. But most things are on the table in terms of things that can realistically be overcome
yeah.
and worked through.
There's a moment in book one where I was reading, I was listening to the book, and one of the characters gets captured by bandits, and in my head I'm like, oh no, here's woman gets captured by bandits. Is this going to go where I think it's going to go? And you don't go there, and I appreciated that, because that wasn't the level of violence I was looking for in my book. So appreciate
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
I certainly have hinted at it. There it is a realistic expectation of the reader to think that in that position where there's an imbalance of power, it it's on the table, right? But
hmm,
it's not something that I'd ever want to actually have happen in front of the reader, or really at all. I try not to.
yeah,
You deal with difficult situations, of course. And in the end, of course, I'm going to make whoever perpetrates any crime have a very bad day for
Yeah.
a little bit of catharsis. But
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna make it a little bit lighter here. Obviously, your books have a lot of building, game mechanics, historical perspective. What does your writing process look like? Are you a pantser or a plotter? And for those who aren't kind of in the author space, pantsers are people that just kind of like the story just happens, and plotters are the ones that have it all mapped out before they start writing, right? So, where do you fall in that, Jay?
I was solidly in the Panzer Court through book 3. I did not have really any plans starting book 1, even into book 2. I was just telling a story almost in a serial novel style, right? I wanted to get the story going. I wanted to show the characters, to the point where some of the biggest characters in the story, like Hannah, like Lin Ma, those were throwaway characters. Those are people that he just met. And the way that I write tends to be playing Dungeons and Dragons as the DM and my characters are the players. So I know my characters really well because they're part of me and they're people that I know, which allows me to place them in situations and just say, let's see what happens. And 100% of the time, that takes me places that I could never have come up with on my own. And it sounds insane because it's me telling myself a story, right? But that's exactly how it works. And
Yeah.
I'm sure many authors have, felt that burn of how did we get here?
Yes.
We didn't start here, but we got
Yes.
there. But as I've moved further into the series, because I have 16 books planned for this series, and I'm hoping I can get this story done in 16 books. So that should tell you just how far we're going to have to go.
Yeah.
And so I've started, I wouldn't say plotting. I have an idea of how the series is going to end, a very good idea. I've actually pretty much written the last little bit in my head. I know what has to happen in the arc that I'm in, and I have a pretty good idea of beginning and end of the book I'm writing, with several things in the middle that have to happen. But everything is subject to change because my characters will do what my characters will do.
Mm-hmm.
So both mostly pantsing. I try to plot, but my characters foil me every time.
Yeah. There's a special magic that happens when you really hand over, what's going to happen next to characters, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, just like in D&D, sometimes you end up in a tavern conversation for a couple hours and that chapter ends up getting cut. But sometimes it's amazing. So
It really is.
we have an accusation leveled at you in the chat. Hannah
Excellent.
is claiming that when you two hang out, you take notes.
Maybe mentally. I don't know that I've ever, busted out the notepad and written something down.
Yeah.
I
So
just imagine that if you gave a bunch of caffeine and sugar to like a 4-year-old and let them loose with a mace, that's pretty much Hannah's fighting style.
yeah.
So, it's pretty easy to imagine.
Have any like verbatim discussions or comments between the two of you ended up in a book?
I'm sure they have. I don't know that I can pinpoint one. We've had some verbatim reviews end up in the books, but I don't know about maybe Hannah might know.
Yeah. Hannah, I think we're gonna have to rely on you for the truth on that one. So
Yeah, she'll make something up.
yeah. All right, Rhonda's got a question. Do you approach writing like a job and devote a set amount of hours to it, or do you just write whenever inspiration hits?
I do approach it like a job. I feel like to write 1.5 million words a year, you kind of have to, and it can take a lot of the fun out of it if you do it wrong. For the longest time, I was writing 7 days a week. I had about a 2,500 word a day minimum that I had to hit, and I was suffering. And I wrote 4 books like that. I made the decision to write 5 days a week. I write before work, and I try to get all of my writing done before I start my day job, which I work from home, so I don't have a commute, which is nice.
Yeah.
But I write 3,700 words minimum a day, which turns out to 18,500 words a week, which is like 900 and something thousand, but I tend to write closer to 5,000 words a day. I try to, if I can finish a chapter in a day, my chapters are about 5,000 to 5,500 words. They're longer chapters, but that's how it breaks down. I consider that a very good day.
Yeah.
And when the further ahead I can get in my backlog, I guess my forelog, the better, because it makes me stress less.
Mm-hmm.
Less stress means I can write more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, as a fellow author, I just want to say that's an incredible amount of writing that you're doing on top of your day job. And that was going to be my next question when you're talking about how much you write. Like, you know, is this a full-time occupation for you? Is this your day job? And that's just incredible. So, yeah.
Well, my day job, I'm a software engineer. So it's a very it's a big shift, you know,
Yeah.
from writing to writing code, but honestly they're both creative endeavors. So it actually has helped my job because I'm able to just kick straight into the creativity of the coding world versus the creativity of my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as bad as it seems, but I am blessed at the moment that, you know, my day job is self-inflicted, and if the worst should happen because I work in tech and I get laid off, it would probably be the best day of my life. So
Yeah.
hopefully soon.
Okay, so how many words a day do you think you'd hit if you didn't have a day job? Would you just become a writing monster? Or your 16 book series would suddenly bloom to 50?
Honestly, I'd probably write the same.
Yeah.
I just have more downtime, which would make me write more efficiently. I'd get my writing done faster, and I think it would be better writing overall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have seen my writing improve. I cringe even listening to book one, given where I've gotten to already in book 5, book 6,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably a good sign.
Yeah, I mean that means you're improving as you go, right? That's you want that. Yeah. Yeah.
I still can't believe any of you people are reading my books. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean it's magic. So, you know, if you haven't picked up Steel Foundations and you're in the chat, I highly recommend it. I'm definitely going to be reading the other 4 books that are out right now. Definitely a fan after reading this first one. So so I had a question for Hannah. You know, do you ever watch what you say in front of Jay in fear that it's going to make it into a book? So just answer us in the chat and we'll see. But while Hannah is tallying who asked the best question for her, Steel Foundations. But while Hannah is picking our winner for tonight of the best question, I've got a couple last things that we're just going to talk about. So Jay, if you had a book that you wanted Pop to add to his TBR, what book would you recommend?
I would recommend Novaterra by Seth Ring. It's one of my favorite series.
Novaterra.
Or is it Terra Nova? I always get that wrong. One's a TV show, one's a book.
Do we know? Does anybody in the audience know what it is?
Novaterra. I got it right the first time. Nice.
Novaterra. All right. I'm putting that into the chat. There we go. Richie put it in the chat for you, Pop. So once you're done driving, you can see that recommendation. So
honestly, the main character in that series is also somewhat of a stoic, although younger, and there are quite a few parallels there. I really like that series.
There's 2 series for that one. There's Novaterra, and then there's the Tower series, which is a continuation of Novaterra.
Okay.
Right.
So
well,
start with Novaterra.
Tower. I'd start with Novaterra.
There's box sets, so best way to go.
Yeah. We're Pop. We're gonna keep him reading for the rest of his life.
That's the plan.
Yep. Yeah. Rhonda says that she's determined to get you booked for a signing at her favorite bookstore. So we'll have to see. Is that something that you'd be open to, is doing signings at bookstores?
I'm down. I have a signing coming up in Fredericksburg in October at a Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
We had an event a couple of months ago up in Kensington. Happy to, you know.
Yeah. We've got somebody asking, how often do you walk around your house with your helmet on? Just
not as
just
often
your helmet
as you might think. It depends on who's home, I suppose. But
yeah,
you know, your vision is somewhat limited in a helmet, of course. Mm-hmm. And we have 8 cats, so
that's a lot of cats.
Chaos can reign if you misstep.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be. That could be very chaotic with 8 cats. So, Pepper wants to know, what's the best piece of feedback you've ever gotten from an editor or an alpha reader?
I don't know if it's feedback, but my alpha readers get access to the books ahead of time, of course, and we do it through Google Docs where they can comment when they find an error, and they find plenty because
Right, so fast. Yeah.
Exactly. And I had a big reveal in book 5. I think it was book 5, and 2 or 3 of them commented something like "God damn" or "got me," and that felt good. Like when my alpha readers, who of course they read these books more than I do, they read more than anybody. If I can get one over on them and they didn't see it coming, that feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. I made this point yesterday, but I just say this, if you are an alpha reader, you picking up an author, especially in lit RPG. A lot of folks are kind of homegrown authors, right? The positive comments really help. And if something hits you, go up to your favorite author at con and tell him, because I think all the folks going to con are really excited to be a little bit closer to fans and hear those types of comments. So
I'm terrified of con, but we'll have fun.
you'll have the helmet on and the bowing. It'll be grand. It'll be great.
My idea of hell is talking in front of people. So this is gonna be. I've got some beta blockers and a dream.
Well, I heard Ren has like 60 liters of alcohol, so so we might all be taken care of.
That might help. Absolutely.
Okay, so the winner of the coin is Tiffany, because she asked Jay how important it was to include diverse and LGBTQA plus characters, and about Leon's character inspiration. Hannah was looking for someone to ask about his dad. So congratulations to Tiffany. Tiffany, so let us know in the chat if you're going to be at con. If so, I think Jay, you said you'd bring it to con. Otherwise, we'll have to get a hold of you so we can get in.
Oh, she'll be there. She's got a whole bunch of stuff planned.
Excellent. Perfect. Okay. Couple last questions. So obviously you're going to Lit RPG Con.
Then
big win, right? So you've got 2 like game times, right? Are you on any? But like, where are we going to find you hanging out at con? Are you going to be at the bar? Are you going to be at the game room? Are you working on a puzzle in the corner?
I'm sure I'll be wandering around until my social battery hits -100. But I'll be out and about. I do have 2 panels. We're doing 6 p.m. on Saturday. Respawn Not This Time, which is permadeath, stakes, and how lit RPG authors make consequences actually matter, which I thought was a hilarious panel for me to be on, but I'll make something up.
It's going to be great.
And then 9 a.m., although on my schedule they put 9 p.m. on Sunday, when world building gets out of hand, crafting systems, designing dungeons, creating new worlds, it's all in a day's work. How far do you go building your worlds, and where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm going to answer that either, but we will figure it out.
I think that's part of the joy of it, right? Is we're going to get questions that people are going to get honest answers, right? So that's great. No, love it. So if you are attending Lit RPG Con, obviously Geneva and Emily pushed out the schedule yesterday, so just look for those 2. Show up for Jay. Feel free to bow, and if you've shaved your head, make sure you show them, right? Last question for you, Jay. Where is it best to find you on social media, or to get updates about your book releases? Where can we find more information about you? Where are you at?
Oh, I'm all over. I'm on Facebook at jkrauss-author. I'm on Instagram at the same handle. I am on Patreon, which I have a free tier and a paid tier. Paid tier is $5. You get access to early access chapters for both of the series, including the new one coming out next month. And my Discord. Discord's by far the fastest way to get a hold of me, but any of them work.
There you go. So Facebook, Discord, Patreon. He's not that hard to find. At least I would say you're not that hard to find online. Maybe the visual video is a little bit harder, but yeah.
I'm very short. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. Tomorrow, we've got Erin Ampersand talking about Engineer's Odyssey, which is she's the author of the Apocalypse Parenting books. So we're going to talk about her latest. I was able to get an alpha copy, and yeah, we'll get to chat about it. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
See ya.
Yeah.